I'm very happy to talk today to Matthias Leuenberger, President of Novartis Switzerland. Matthias, welcome to our Innovation Connect talk. Very glad to have you as our guest today.
My pleasure, Antonio. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Matthias, first question. Innovation is clearly core to Novartis, being a leading life science company. What is the role of Switzerland in your overall innovation agenda?
Yeah, so Switzerland is indeed a very important hub for Switzerland, for Novartis actually, and Switzerland being our headquarter. We have three major innovation hubs. We have one in the US, we have the one in Switzerland, obviously, being actually almost the largest, and we have one in China.
Matthias, over the past months, we talked to startup and large-scale organization, and I think one of the challenge we discussed is how large-scale organization can scale, but also how they more generally collaborate with startups. And then I know you at Novartis, collaborate a lot. You have an ecosystem, through Biome as an example. So what's your perspective? Is it more difficult in Switzerland to collaborate with the startup ecosystem than maybe it is in other countries?
Interesting question. I mean, my perception is no. Fundamentally, it is in Switzerland also quite easy. We also have a good ecosystem here in Switzerland. I mean, if it was more difficult, then probably we would not be spending so much R&D money in Switzerland, 40% as I mentioned, and have 2,500 people here. And our recent announcement to collaborate with Molecular Partners, a Swiss biotech startup based in Zurich, on fighting COVID-19 also shows that this works. I mean, one of the prerequisites, obviously, is that we can attract the talents that we need to Switzerland. And up until now, this is still possible without any major challenges. But obviously, there is always a caveat to it because, we will be talking about the institutional framework agreement, about, the free movement of people and things like that. That could obviously have an impact on easiness of doing business and research in Switzerland.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Matthias, and thanks also for the very positive message. Glad to hear. So you're a life science company, you mentioned your R&D budget. And what we've seen over the past decade or so is ROI from R&D decreasing drastically. I think it's slightly improved in the last 2 years or so. Novartis has made substantial investment. You have one of the largest and more advanced portfolio of innovative medicine in the industry. What's your view on improving ROI and how can innovation help that?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question, actually. So first of all, I mean, Novartis has two major businesses. There's the innovative business, right? So, everything that has to do with patent-protected, innovative medicines, research and development heavy. And then there's, of course, Sandoz, which is our generics division, and that is a whole different value proposition. So I'm not going to talk about Sandoz much. Of course, they are very important, specifically now during the pandemic crisis, because they produce many, drugs that are used. But if you talk about R&D, if you talk about, ROI, there's a few levers. One certainly is we have to make sure that we do research and development in a very cost-efficient way. And one lever there really is, data, artificial intelligence. These technologies can help to substantially speed up the development. It's, a question of time. The longer it takes, the more expensive it gets, of course. And if there is an attrition, so you lose a project for whatever reason, late stage, then of course, all these costs you still bear. So the challenge is to be, very efficient and to make sure that you can select those projects that have a high chance of success early on. So that's certainly a key lever. Data management, artificial intelligence, large data, whatever. These topics are, I think, paramount.
Yeah, and it's about taking, of course, a portfolio view, right? So fail cheap where it's possible and then scale fast where you see opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, now during the pandemic for last year, what we saw is a margin expansion by a few percentage points. And that is simply driven by the fact that, also Novartis was affected by the lockdown. So we did not have as much travel as we used to have. We did not have as many, site visits and doctor visits. So these are costs that did not incur. So that helped to improve the margin, but of course it will not stay.
Matthias, many thanks for joining. It's been a pleasure to have you as a guest in our Innovation Connect talks. We really appreciated you sharing openly your perspectives and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Antonio. It was my pleasure. Welcome.